Good morning, folks. This is Billy Trout, manager of Taxpayer Services Education Section. On behalf of our Commissioner David Geragino and our staff in Taxpayer Services, we want to welcome you to today's webinar on tobacco taxes in Tennessee. And with us today, we have our lovely hostess, Miss Katie Julian. Katie, thank you for showing up this day after our long Christmas holiday here to talk about
Right.
the tobacco taxes in Tennessee. And of course, we have our Assistant Director of Taxpayer Services, Dan Vinson, who is online in our chat room to discuss any questions that you guys might have. And we'll do our best to try to answer those today as well, too. But Katie's going to go through a few things here on this beginning of the slide here, and we'll be back to touch base on a couple of small issues as we go through the presentation. So we thank y'all for joining us today, and we'll have a recording of this out online for your convenience later as well. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Billy. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all thawing out right now, right? I see the sun, and uh, I think we may even get above freezing here in Tennessee today. Knock on wood. Let's hope, right? um, I hope you had a great Christmas. This is that week between Christmas and New Year's when everybody's confused about what day it is, right? But last Tuesday of the month, our free tax webinar always. Again, like Billy said, this month is on tobacco taxes. So just to call your attention to a few things before I proceed, everything you see on your screen here, if you've got audio problems, the best thing to do, you can do an audio check and make sure if you can hear me now. Obviously you can hear me, but if you experience issues throughout, logging out of the webinar and then rejoining it usually fixes it. Like Billy said, we are going to have a recording of this webinar on our website. Where you went to register for today's webinar, just go right back there to our taxpayer education page on our website, and there's a webinar video library. We actually just recently redid that library and organized all of our webinars a little bit better. So have a look at that when you have some free time. We've got a lot of great webinars. If you have some questions for us after today, we'll give you this email address and phone number later, but our email is revenue.support@tn.gov, and our phone number for customer service is 615-253-0600, and we are open Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30 at that number, and can answer your emails during those hours too. So you'll get a real live person really quickly on the phone. So we're proud of that. So let's move ahead here and discuss and start talking about tobacco taxes in Tennessee. So we're going to
Katie shares an overview of the presentation on tobacco tax. It outlines key topics that will be discussed, including what is tobacco tax, who pays for it, what products are taxed, the role of the retailers, additional reporting and licensing requirements, registering and filing, and Q&A.
go through today what is the tobacco tax, who pays for it, what products are taxed, the role of retailers, additional reporting and licensing requirements, how to register, how to file, and then we'll address some frequently asked questions as well. So I'm going to do things a little bit differently this time actually, and before I go any further, I'm going to take you over to our website and show you the resources on our website regarding tobacco taxes, and I may share those again with you at the end of the presentation, but let's see. Let's go over to my web browser. All right. And from our home page, I'm working off of one screen today because I'm out of town and I've got to move some stuff around here. Okay. From our homepage, tn.gov/revenue, the best place for, well, there's a few places to go for various resources, but the first place I'm going to take you for tobacco taxes is over to the tobacco tax page. You can get to that by the drop down here under taxes, or you can click on the taxes tile. I'll click on the tile here, scroll all the way down. We got lots of taxes here in Tennessee, don't we? Tobacco taxes. So you'll see here the menu on your left takes you through various aspects of this tax type, and for each of our tax types, this is the case. You've got due dates and tax rates, registration and licensing, filing and paying, the PACT Act, licensed distributor report, wholesale versus retailer. Here's a link directly over to that directory of approved manufacturers. and I'll call your attention to this here in a little while again too, but this is a pretty cool place too. You can subscribe to email alerts for tobacco brands. Various forms, of course, you can file and pay on TinTap, but here's the paper form and some other forms that are relevant, and publications and other resources. The next place I'm going to take you, go back to the top here to our homepage. I'm going to take you to where the tobacco tax manual is. We're going to go to tax resources, click on that, and all of our manuals can be found here under legal resources.
As Katie continues her web demo, she notes everything you would need to know about tobacco tax can be found here. Katie has her mouse hovering over the Legal Resources tab on the tn.gov/revenue/tax resources webpage.
Just click on tax manuals. Now this one's a little tricky though because it's not under tobacco. You see, it's alphabetized. There's not a tobacco drop down here, but it is under the miscellaneous taxes here. So there is our tobacco tax manual. Everything you would need to know in one place about tobacco taxes here. And just one more place I will take you before we get going is Revenue Help.
Katie returns to the tn.gov/revenue homepage and navigates to the third tile on the upper right of the screen titled Revenue Help.
Click on Revenue Help, and this is various articles about all of our tax types and more, but if you click on taxes, scroll on down.
After clicking Revenue Help, Katie is directed to a secondary page. She clicks on Taxes, scrolls to the bottom of the list, selects See More, and an extended page of all different tax types is visible.
See more here. You can see these are all of our different tax types, alphabetized. I'm scrolling pretty fast here, but we'll be referencing the RAP program, the Retail Accountability Program. There's information about that right there. And tobacco tax. Here we go. You can see we've got, let's see, what is that? 15 articles about tobacco taxes. So between our tax page, our tax manual, and revenue help here, lots of great resources for you. Let's go back over to the PowerPoint here. All right. So let's dive into tobacco taxes here. Tobacco taxes is dealers and distributors making wholesale sales of cigarettes, little cigars, and other tobacco products, which we'll refer to as OTP, must be licensed and remit tobacco tax. There are also some additional reporting requirements as well, licensing and reporting requirements. All of the tobacco tax laws, rules, and regulations are going to be over in TCA 67-4-1001 through 67-4-1033. There's also tobacco tax laws in TCA 67-4-2601 through 67-4-2610. The Tennessee rules and regulations are listed there too, which you can find those on our website, but the rules and regs regarding tobacco taxes are 1320-04-03-.01 through .13. So the tobacco tax actually began, you can see this image of a stamp here, back in 1925, actually. It's morphed throughout the years, but Tennessee makes a good amount of revenue on tobacco taxes. You can see here we just got our final numbers in for fiscal year 2022 allocations.
A blue 3D bar chart displays the allocation of FY 2022 tobacco tax revenue across several funding categories. The chart shows that the majority of the $228.2 million in tobacco tax revenue was allocated to education, with smaller portions distributed to agriculture enhancement programs, trauma center funding, and general fund, highlighting how tobacco tax revenue supports various state programs and services.
We had, looks like 228 million in total tobacco allocations. You can see there the vast majority of allocations go towards education. So a little bit towards agriculture enhancement programs, some trauma center funding, and a little tiny bit goes to the general fund, but the vast majority there at 87.4% going into the education, state's education fund. This tax is one rare tax that actually had a decrease in revenue between the 21 and 22 fiscal year. Not sure what that's from. Maybe it's decrease in smoking. Could also be that vape products are not subject to the tobacco tax. And I know that that's kind of a popular thing that's replaced some tobacco. So, but that the revenue from tobacco taxes did go down over the past year.
The next slide explains how tobacco taxes are administered for different product categories. A series of connected boxes and arrows organized under Item, Administration of Tobacco Tax, and Amount illustrates the process. The diagram shows the specific tax collection method and corresponding tax rate for wholesale cigarettes, little cigars, and other tobacco products.
So administration requirements here, wholesale, as I mentioned, wholesale cigarettes and little cigars. The administration of that, the wholesaler will purchase stamps to affix to each pack. Those our tobacco team is actually doing that right now, getting stamps together as we speak. So the amount there is 62 cents for a pack of 20. Other tobacco products, as I mentioned, referred to as OTP, the tax is remitted on a monthly tobacco tax return, and the tax amount there is 6.6% of the wholesale cost. We're going to go through the tobacco tax return here in a little while, but we're first going to talk in detail about the licensing requirements and other reporting requirements that go along with tobacco tax. Before going into that, just a quick slide here about retailers. Retailers, this is kind of confusing sometimes. We've got people that sell tobacco at retail. They do not have to have a tobacco tax account. They are the only entities that are permitted to sell tobacco products directly to the consumer. Wholesalers cannot, only retailers. Retailers can only sell tobacco products that are listed on Tennessee's directory of approved tobacco product manufacturers. I showed you that just a couple minutes ago, and where I showed you where you can sign up for email alerts. That's real important, those email alerts. If you are a retailer of tobacco, you can only sell tobacco products that are on that list. And if that list ever changes, has manufacturers added to it or taken away, you will get an alert about that if you sign up for email alerts. So that's real important. If you're a retailer and you're selling a tobacco product that is no longer on our approved list, then you can actually get in big trouble for that. So important there, sign up for those alerts. And while I'm thinking about it, you can see there's a hyperlink here. You can't click on the hyperlink within this PowerPoint that I'm showing you, but if you downloaded or went over to the link that I listed in chat to download a PDF of this presentation, it will have hyperlinks in it, so you can walk through it that way. Back onto this slide, retailers can only sell cigarettes and little cigars that are already stamped. Very important there if you're a retailer. That's your responsibility to make sure that you're only selling products that are stamped if it's cigarettes and little cigars. Retailers are allowed to purchase other tobacco products and remit the tax themselves. And retailers are required to pay the tax on untaxed tobacco products that are purchased out of state.
Hey, Katie, real quick, can I mention
Sure.
something?
Please do.
So I think this is sort of important, but and maybe it's a little bit more obvious to some people than it is for others, but that retailer, the one thing you want to do as a retailer, like you mentioned earlier, is to make sure that you are getting these email updates to make sure that every piece of product that you have in your store is sellable because it is on the authorized list. But the other thing you want to also always think of is there anything in my store that is unstamped and untaxed? If there is, you have a big problem. Okay, that's going to have to be changed. In other words, you don't need to be purchasing materials from people who are selling you unstamped material. Now, this is unlikely to happen, but if you're a retailer of tobacco products in Tennessee and you're buying from a Tennessee wholesaler, it is extremely likely that that's going to come in as stamped already. Okay, so you don't have that problem. But if you happen to acquire some material from outside of our state that doesn't have the stamp on it, then you need to reach out to us and let us try to help you figure out how best to handle that situation. Because having unstamped or untaxed products for sale in your store is a giant no-no. It is a big problem. You do not want that to happen. So
Yeah, I
I
think
thought
you're
I would throw
considering
that out
possession
there.
of contraband, right, Billy?
Exactly. Yeah. And you could be subject to penalties and, and you're going to have to end up paying money and stuff like that. So don't do that. Just be real careful about it. Because there are some folks out there in the world that try to get around the taxing system a little bit and try to do some things that they shouldn't be doing. And you, as a good retailer, you're not going to accept that kind of product in your store because you're going to protect yourself. Okay. That's how that goes. Okay.
Right.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
And just to reiterate too, it's the cigarettes and little cigars, the things that come in packs that are going to have the stamps on them, uh, like chewing tobacco, dip, that kind of other tobacco product is not going to be stamped. The tax is on those is paid on the tax return. For packs of cigarettes and little cigars, uh, those are what require the stamp that the wholesaler is going to purchase and put on those packs that the retailer will then sell to the consumer. And again, only retailers can sell to the consumer. So we're going to talk about licensing now. We have licenses for the tobacco distributors, wholesale dealers and jobbers, manufacturing distributors, and tobacco manufacturer warehouses. All tobacco licenses expire on May 31st. Here in the middle here, you'll see if a taxpayer obtains a distributor or wholesaler license, it cannot also sell to consumers. So we've reiterated that here a few times. If you're a wholesaler or a distributor, you cannot be a retailer. And again, retail stores do not need to be licensed. If you have a gas station or any kind of store where you're selling cigarettes, little cigars, or other tobacco products, you do not need to be licensed. It's the wholesalers and distributors. So the first license we're going to talk about is the manufacturing distributor license. Now this is going to be required if a manufacturer distributor.
The next slide shows a simple eligibility diagram with two blue boxes connected by a plus sign to show the requirements for obtaining a manufacturing distributor license. The first box reads, plant located in TN, with an addition symbol connecting it to a second box that reads, engaged in the business of manufacturing or processing consumable, taxable tobacco products that are subject to tobacco tax. Together, the boxes illustrate the conditions that must be met to require this license. The slide also notes a $200 fee per plant or processing location and a minimum bond requirement of $2,000.
Has a plant that is located in Tennessee and is engaged in the business of manufacturing or processing taxable tobacco products that are subject to the tobacco tax. The fee for this license is $200 per plant or processing location, and the bond requirement for a manufacturing distributor license is minimum of $2,000. So for all of the bonds that we'll talk about with these licenses, there is an annual review of the bonds. I believe it's in October. Those reviews, if you have, you will get a letter in the mail if you have one of these licenses that lets you know that you either have sufficient bond amount or that you have too much or that it is insufficient. And if you've got a license, you can expect to get one of those three letters, either insufficient, sufficient, or too much bond once a year from the Department of Revenue. You'll get that letter.
A similar slide with two blue boxes connected by an addition symbol reads, taxpayer maintains a warehouse, building, structure, etc., where any tobacco products are stored to be distributed, but are maintained separate from the manufacturer's operation. The second box connected by the addition symbol reads, Title II and control of distribution of tobacco products stored remain with the manufacturer/processor.
The next license that we will discuss is the Tobacco Manufacturer's Warehouse License, which is required if a taxpayer maintains basically any kind of facility where tobacco products are stored to be distributed but are maintained separate from the manufacturer's operation. It's also required if Title II and control of distribution of the tobacco products stored remains with the manufacturer or processor. The fee for this license is $200 per storage warehouse per year. And this one has a much higher bond requirement. It's a minimum of $20,000 for the bond requirement for tobacco manufacturer's warehouse license. The wholesale.
A third eligibility diagram shows 3 blue boxes connected by a plus sign to illustrate the requirements for obtaining wholesale dealer and jobber license. The text in the first box reads, maintains wholesale facilities in one or more permanent locations. The second box reads, receives, stores, purchases, sells at wholesale, imports unstamped tobacco products, or handles tobacco products for resale at wholesale price. And the third reads, sell only to other licensed wholesalers, distributors, or retailers. Together, these criteria indicate when a taxpayer is required to obtain this license.
Dealer and jobber license. That's going to be required if you maintain wholesale facilities in one or more permanent locations, receive, store, purchase, sell at wholesale, or import unstamped tobacco product or handles tobacco product for resale at a wholesale price, and sells only to other licensed wholesalers and distributors or retailers. The fee for this license is $200 per year for each separate sale warehouse, and the bond requirement back down to a minimum of $2,000 for this one.
A fourth eligibility diagram is shown to determine if a distributor license is required of the taxpayer. The first box reads, receives, purchases, or sells tobacco products as a secondary wholesaler. The addition symbol connecting the second blue box in frame reads, acquires only pre-stamped cigarettes and or other tobacco products on which the tax has been previously paid.
And finally, tobacco distributor license. This one's going to be required if you receive, purchase, or sell tobacco products as a secondary wholesaler. And acquire only pre-stamped cigarettes and other tobacco products on which the tax has already been paid. Basically, this is for the middleman, all right? The fee there is $100 per secondary wholesale location, and no bond is required for this tobacco distributor license. This is just a sample of what the license looks like. If you are looking at the PDF, you can zoom in there to see what the license looks like. It's going to have a letter ID, an account ID, which type of license or permit it is, and then the information there you can see at the bottom, the issue date, when it's valid through, all that good stuff. So penalties, we don't want to get in this situation for sure, but there is penalty for failing to obtain or renew your license. And that penalty is equal to the amount of the license fee for each month or part of a month during which the activity or failure continues. So if you didn't ever get a license or you haven't renewed it and are late renewing your license, that is the penalty. There is a discretionary penalty that's fairly rare, but it may be no more than $250 a day, which is pretty hefty, right? For each day during which the activity or failure occurred. You definitely don't want to get into that situation.
The next slide lists 3 required reports for licensed tobacco distributors. Each report is shown in dark blue labeled with a document icon beside it. The reports are Licensed Distributor Report, parentheses LDR, Prevent All Cigarette Trafficking, PACT, and Retail Accountability Program, RAP. A note in the upper right corner indicates that all reports are filed through TinTap.
All right, so that's about licensing. Now we're going to get into the various reports that are required for those who have tobacco licenses. The first one is called the LDR, or Licensed Distributor Report. The next one is called PACT, or Prevent All Cigarette Trafficking Report. And then we've got a Retail Accountability Program, RAP report. So lots of acronyms here. Moving forward, we'll just refer to these as the LDR, the PACT, or the RAP report. They're all available on TinTap. You'll see here there is a special number to call, an email to reach out to for questions about any of these 3 reports. There's a toll-free number, a Nashville area number, and then the email for information or questions about these reports specifically is resale.data@tn.gov. Of course, if you were to send it to our regular help email, which is revenue.support@tn.gov, we would get it routed to where it needs to go. But just so you know, there is a special group that deals specifically with questions about these, and that's how to reach out to them directly. All right, we're going to talk about the LDR report here. The LDR report reflects the total number of cigarettes, roll your own, which we call RYO tobacco, and little cigars in each brand family sold in Tennessee to which state tobacco tax stamps have been affixed and/or the tobacco tax has been remitted. So each wholesaler is required to file this report. It's due on the 15th day every month. All invoices and documentation of sales of cigarettes and/or any other information used to complete the report are required to be maintained for a period of 7 years. Real important there that you hold on to those records and any documentation for 7 years. There are differences in the requirements for in-state and out-of-state. We're going to break that down just a little bit. For in-state wholesalers, for this LDR report, you're going to be reporting the number of cigarettes and little cigars that were stamped during the month, including Tennessee stamps and any other tax stamps. You're going to be reporting the ounces of roll your own on which tax was paid during the month, including Tennessee tax and tax for any other jurisdictions, any other states. In-state wholesalers are going to report inventory adjustments that may have occurred and also report beginning and ending inventory and purchases and sales of Tennessee stamped products, cigarettes, and tax paid on the RYO tobacco, tax stamped or tax paid on little cigars for all tax jurisdictions, tax stamped NPM, another acronym here, non-participating manufacturer cigarettes, and tax paid on NPN, roll your own tobacco for all jurisdictions, and unstamped cigarettes, little cigars, and roll your own on which tax has not been paid. So lots to report there on the LDR. It's a pretty in-depth report. For out-of-state, it's just slightly different. Again, out-of-state wholesalers are going to be reporting the number of cigarettes and little cigars that were stamped during the month, including participating manufacturer cigarettes and little cigars with Tennessee stamps and non-participating manufacturer cigarettes with any stamps. Ounces of roll your own on which tax was paid during the month, including the participating manufacturer roll your own in Tennessee and non-participating manufacturer roll your own product in all tax jurisdictions. That's a lot of acronyms in that one, right? Inventory adjustments, same as in-state inventory adjustments that may have occurred during the month, you're going to report if you're an out-of-state wholesaler, and beginning and ending inventory. For out-of-state wholesalers, the non-participating manufacturer cigarettes, roll your own products, stamped, purchased, sold, or inventoried for use outside Tennessee and not on the Tennessee directory are not required to be reported. You can see here, this is actually a sample of what it looks like, what this LDR report looks like on TinTap.
A screenshot of TinTap reporting dashboard or form is shown. It is organized into several data entry sections arranged in a grid, including stamping activity, beginning inventory, sales, inventory adjustments, purchases, and ending inventory. The sample layout resembles an online reporting interface used to enter and review tobacco product inventory and transaction data.
Again, you see their stamping activity, beginning inventory, sales, inventory adjustments, purchases, and ending inventory. So that kind of gives you a visual for everything we just went over in bullet form and in sentence form on these last couple of slides for in-state and out-of-state wholesalers. All right, so now we're going to talk about the PACT report. This is required by federal law. It requires that anyone who ships or transfers any of these items from another state in Tennessee complete the PACT report. So we're looking if you're shipping or transferring cigarettes or little cigars, roll your own, smokeless tobacco, and electronic nicotine delivery systems. These are your vape products. That is required on the PACT report. If the taxpayer is a Tennessee dealer that ships these products into another state, they're required to register the products with that state.
Hey, Katie, one thing that's kind of important on that is, you mentioned that vaping isn't subject to tobacco tax, right?
Right,
But yet here's a report that's saying you've got to put stuff on there about these nicotine delivery systems.
right.
So that's maybe a square peg round hole sort of thing, right?
Right. And
Yeah,
it's my understanding that that's fairly new, that came into law just within the past few years,
yeah.
where that PACT report is required to keep track of the electronic nicotine system
Okay.
items. Yep. Thanks, Billy. All right, now we're going to talk about that RAP report, the Retail Accountability Program. So anyone who sells tobacco, including cigarettes and OTP, to Tennessee retailers for resale must report these sales electronically, so on TinTap, through the Retail Accountability Program. We've got lots of information about the RAP program. If you've got the PDF open, you can see a link there to um, detailed information. I'm actually going to take you over there when we're done here in a few minutes because I forgot to show this to you when I was showing you resources on our website, but I'll take you there in a few minutes. The purpose of RAP is to ensure that sales tax is collected from consumers and remitted to the state. RAP requires wholesalers of beer and tobacco products to file information reports electronically with us detailing the sales. And the reports can be filed either monthly or quarterly and will be due on the 25th of the month following the reporting period. Lots of information. I did show you this over in Revenue Help, those articles. Lots of great information about RAP. There's a whole section in Revenue Help, those help articles about RAP. You can see there's information on how the assessments are calculated, information included in wholesaler data, how to access wholesaler data, amending those sales tax returns if you've received a RAP assessment. The cigarette buy down program, participation, documentation, and credit there. Lots of information on the Revenue Help page about RAP, and there's a link to it as well if you've got the PDF. All right, actually, before I move on to filing the return, I'm going to take you over to, so that in case I'd probably forget if I didn't do it now, I'm going to take you over to where you can find more information about RAP on our website. Let's go over to Revenue homepage here, tn.gov/revenue. And I'm going to click on Tax Resources, which is also where we went to find our manual, right? Over there on the left under Legal Resources. But for RAP information, under Compliance here on the right, if you look down under that, there's a subheading for Retail Accountability Program. Lots of information here about the RAP program. You can click on here for more information for the role of retailers with the RAP program, and there's also more information on the role of wholesalers with the RAP program. So wanted to make sure to share that with you. Great resource there on our website. Again, I went to tn.gov/revenue and then clicked on tax resources and compliance information. That's where we found Retail Accountability Program, more information there. I believe you can link over to that from that tax page, the tobacco tax page as well, but here's how you can get directly to it. Okay, going back over to the PowerPoint here to talk about the tobacco tax return. The tax return is form TOB 552. Of course, there is a paper form that you can reference for instructions and such, but it is required. This is a tax type. It is required to be filed on TinTap. The return is used to report the purchases, stamping activity, and inventories of cigarettes, little cigars, and OTP for the month indicated on the return. The due date is going to be the 15th of the month, regardless of whether transactions have occurred. So if you have a tobacco account that is active, even if you don't have any sales, you will need to file a return, whether you've got sales or not. Just a breakdown here of the different schedules that are on the tobacco tax return. We've got schedules A and B. They're used to report the disposition of cigarette packs during the month. So this is stamping activity. In-state wholesalers are going to complete Schedule A, and out-of-state wholesalers complete Schedule B. Schedule C is completed by in-state and out-of-state wholesalers, and it's for tracking the disposition of Tennessee cigarette stamps that are the disposition of Tennessee cigarette stamps are entered on Schedule C. Schedule D is used to report other tobacco products. In-state wholesalers report and pay tobacco tax on the cost price of other tobacco products less the cost of out-of-state sales of other tobacco products. Out-of-state wholesalers will report and pay tobacco tax on the cost of OTP sold into the state. Schedule E on the tobacco tax return is used to report and pay the cigarette tax on roll your own tobacco, RYO. It's based on the number of cigarettes rolled or sold during the month, and credit is allowed for the tobacco tax paid on the tobacco used to produce the roll your own cigarettes. Registering for tobacco tax. Now, when you go into TINTAP to register, you're going to walk through a series of questions, just like with all of our tax types, with basic information about the business, the type of entity, information such as the address, the location address, mailing address, all that good stuff. Well, then you're going to get to a section that is basically a survey that walks you through a series of questions, yes/no questions, that is going to tell you, after you answer yes or no to the various questions, it will tell you what type of license you will need. So it's very important to pay attention to those questions. If you've got any questions about it, we would recommend calling us rather than just guessing here with yes or no, because figuring out exactly which license that you need is an important part of registering. So walks you through it. Like I said, it's pretty self-explanatory, but if you get stuck on these, definitely feel free to call us so we can make sure you get the right kind of license that you need. All right, well, we're going to wrap things up here. I already shared with you where the resources are, but this is just a slide to show you for the tax manual and other important notices regarding all of our tax types. You're going to click on tax resources on our website. That was also where you went to find wrap information, was under tax resources. To register, file, pay, etc., you're going to go to TINTAP. You can click on the TINTAP tile from our homepage. The general tax information, there were two different ways to get to that. You can either click on the taxes drop down from that top menu, or you can click on the taxes tile. And then those help articles about all of our different taxes. We have great help articles about TINTAP as well. All of those are going to be over on revenue help, the little tile with the questions there. All right, well, I'm going to leave it on this slide for a minute. Billy, I've not been looking at the chat at all while I've been yapping here, but I don't know if we've got any questions that have, looks
Well,
like
it's
we don't have
kind of an easy thing to do since we don't have anybody chatting with us. So we've either
All right,
mesmerized everybody or
bored you to
we
death.
hopefully not bored to death. Hope not. But
Hopefully not.
anyway, I thought I'd just bring up a couple of things as we wrap up here. You know, Katie and I and Dan talked to a couple of our experts back in the office last week as we began looking at the stuff about tobacco tax, which of course is not a very common tax overall in Tennessee, but excuse me, we have a couple of things that I thought was interesting. You know, those little 62-cent stamps, you know, that Katie mentioned in the presentation. We asked them, well, how many stamps or how much do we do on a given week in stamp orders? And they told us anywhere from $2 to $3 million a week is sent out of our office for tobacco stamps. That's a lot of money. So when you think about 62 cents, not a bunch of money, but when you start multiplying that out, it's a lot. So we have to be very accountable for all of these stamps that go out and all that too. And you'll notice too, when in Katie's presentation, she brought up a lot of information about licensing and requirements and the manual and things like that. So if you're engaged in selling these tobacco products, just make sure you've got your ducks in a row. Make sure your licenses are renewed properly and on time. Notifications are sent out. And of course, if you do renew a license late, there's a penalty charge on that too. So you don't want to pay extra. You want to make sure you get everything done on time too. And I think that bond review, Katie, you mentioned bonding. I think that's done in October. And then, of course, we let everybody know if their bond is good or if you need to increase or decrease your bond. As far as that goes, if you choose not to decrease your bond, that's okay. You don't have to, but you might save a little bit of money with your bonding agent there on that too. Um, Saw a couple of chat questions come up here. Katie Marquise says, "Are the slides available somewhere?" Yeah, actually, on our website right now. If you go out to the webinar page, you can find the a PDF of these slides that are out there right now, and you can see that. And we'll post that recording as well. Katie, what? Probably tomorrow morning.
Yep. Later today or tomorrow. Yep.
Yeah, it usually takes us to the next day based on who we have available to do that kind of thing there too. Um, and
I've
looks
got a
like,
question from Bernie that came
okay,
to just me. It looks like, how do you find the RAP report in TINTAP for each of your clients? And that's a great question, Bernie. If you're a third party, an accountant, CPA, bookkeeper, we are actually having a webinar later in January, a special webinar. It's in addition to our monthly last Tuesday of the month free tax webinar, which is on agricultural exemptions, but we're having one on the 17th that you'll be able to register for starting later today, that is for third parties in TINTAP, that will address specifically how you add access to your clients' accounts and then some tips on how to find them. But I will tell you, if you've already added access to your client's RAP report and account, you can find it. There's a search bar where you can type in the company that you're looking for. You can type the name of the company in there, and all of the accounts that you have access to, the tax accounts and the reports, you'll find there. I don't know. I can't get into TinTap right now
Katie,
to be able to show you, but
let me offer another suggestion too. You see in bold here on the slide that Katie's showing you about our call center phone number. Let me also give you guys another phone number, and I'll type it into chat as well. And this is the call center number for our tobacco unit, and they also handle alcohol questions too. And that number is 615-253. 0680. Just putting that in chat right now for you as well. Okay. It's just a 2 digits different than the regular number there too, but that'll ring you right into their unit, and they can hold your hand a little bit on this if you're trying to get into these reports or want to talk about the reports and stuff like that. They're experts in it. They talk about it all day long. Katie and I don't think we're experts. Do you, Katie? I
no,
don't think
definitely
so. Not
not.
on this tax. This is sort of a weird one, but nevertheless, we do have people that do this stuff all day long, and they're glad to help you out too. I want to mention one thing about RAP. I talked to the supervisor in that area several months ago on some other issues too, and he was just having some general comments about different things. But the retail accountability part of this thing is really important. The reason the Department of Revenue is so high on getting this right is because there has been in years past underreporting by retailers in, let's just say it's like convenience stores. Okay, that's very the common use of this sort of thing too. And it's not to say that there's people that are just not doing what they should do. But when you see tobacco products or alcohol or whatever they're tracking through the RAP program going in there, and you see the amount of inventory that's being sold into these stores, and then you see a relatively little amount of sales being reported, that's a big trigger. Okay. So that's what triggers these RAP assessments. So when you get these, take them very seriously and talk to people about why you got them if you don't understand them. Because what you don't want to do is to let that thing stack up on you month to month. And what the supervisor in that unit had told me is that he had seen several retailers for many months that had had a RAP assessment. So you don't want that to happen to you. That's money that you're paying that you don't really need to be paying. You're trying to go out there and make a profit and all that and do things the right way. So, if there's a problem, if there's something you need to discuss about tobacco buy downs or for, oh my goodness, all kinds of other little nuances in this law. You need to have that conversation with people because you don't want to overpay or be penalized in some way just because you don't understand what's going on. So I just thought I would bring that up because I thought that was interesting, and he was sort of scratching his head about why folks would get multiple RAP assessments and not reach out to us for help. So the help's there, guys. Make sure you do that. And Katie, I know you've put the numbers back up here as well as the email
Mhm.
address, right?
Right. Yep.
Excellent. Excellent.
Um, I've got another question that came through directly to me from Tim. Internet sales of vape products into Tennessee, anything special or only the PACT Act? So one thing I want to make note of here with vape products, even though they're not subject to the tobacco tax, for sure they must be reported on that PACT report. You're right,
Mhm.
Tim, yes. But also sales tax. We didn't really, that might go without saying, right? But
Oh,
all of
yeah.
these products are also subject to sales tax, the tobacco
No
tax
question.
for, right. So those vape
Business tax
products,
too. Business
yes,
tax too, Katie. Yeah,
that's right.
absolutely.
Yep,
You could potentially have access for franchise and excise tax too if you're like an out-of-state corporation or LLC
right,
selling into our state. They'll give you Nexus just by that too. So, and this is that's a big bag of worms. I know it's not what Tim was really asking. I don't think, but nevertheless, it's a big important thing to get right.
right, for sure. Well, I think that probably is going to wrap things up for us, no pun intended, right?
Oh, I see what you did, Katie.
Uh-huh,
Thanks.
uh-huh. Um, Billy, did anything else you want to add on this
No,
topic?
we just thank everybody. This is the end of 2022. I think we've done a pretty good job of offering you guys some webinars this year, and we hope that they've been very helpful to you. Katie's showing you now how you can get more information on social media about the Department of Revenue, all kinds of stuff we put out there. One interesting thing we've put out there most recently is, hey, looking for a job? How about you try to hook up with us and come join our crew
Right.
if you're
We're so fun to
so
work with, aren't we,
inclined?
Billy?
Some of us are, Katie. Maybe present company excluded. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, hey now.
Just kidding.
Also want
But
to mention, I briefly mentioned it, but our webinar next month on the last Tuesday of the month is on agricultural exemptions. There's been some changes recently in agricultural exemptions that go into effect on the 1st. So be sure to join us for that one. And we are having, as I mentioned, a special little bonus webinar this month that's going to be on the 17th. You'll be able to register. The one on the 17th is regarding third-party access in TINTAP. So for that webinar and for the agriculture exemptions webinar, you'll be able to register for those. Billy, those links will be up later today, right?
we should have that up as soon as possible, depending on this is the holidays, as you know, where we have people in and out. So I hate to promise anybody, but they'll be up very quickly.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Well, with that, I just want to thank everyone for joining us and let us know if you've got any questions that come to your mind later, revenue.support@tn.gov. And as you're exiting, if you could just take a minute and fill out our quick survey about today's presentation, that would be much appreciated.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a
Thanks,
good day.
y'all.
All
Thanks,
right.
Billy.
Bye. Bye, everyone.